What was your biggest fear as a child? For me, it was waking up in the middle of the night to this. As a kid, I was petrified at my home, shrouded in darkness, filled with nothing but pure, empty silence. Just me and the stillness of nothing and whatever lurked in it. I remember many times waking up, panicking, and running to my parents' room or to my sister's just to make sure that someone was still there. I didn't wake them up to tell them about what I was panicking about. I just simply wanted to know that it wasn't just me in that house. I'd return to my room and would turn on my TV and let the sounds of whatever was on late night television fill the room with its comforting glow and gently fall back asleep. And when I woke up, it was daytime and the nightmare was over. Being an adult, I couldn't really tell you what it was that I was so afraid of or what I thought lied in the darkness. The boogeyman, a ghost, perhaps just something scary I saw in a movie I probably shouldn't have been watching. Who knows? Like many silly childhood thoughts that I had, they simply just faded away over time and became nothing more than memories of growing up. Whatever it was that swam through my mind night after night just simply vanished. Even if you pried the information out of me, I couldn't really put a face on what it was. However, a few weeks ago, whatever it was I feared back then, believe it or not, crept back up to me all of these years later. And it only happened when I sat down to watch a movie called Skinamarink, a film that follows the story of two children who wake up in the middle of the night to discover that not only has their father vanished, but so have all the doors and windows to the house.
Where did they go?
The two kids, frightened and confused, find themselves huddled in the family room next to their TV and their toys, just waiting for someone to come home. But as days begin to grow and more strange occurrences take place, they find that there's something far more sinister watching over them. Waiting. Now, while this situation already sounds like the makings of a perfect nightmare from the depths of our childhood, I think there's more to this movie than a simple story about something going bump in the night. What makes Skinamarink as effective as it is comes from what the film chooses to show and how that manages to put nightmarish images into your mind and draw you into its world. Skinamarink is a film with a very unique style to it, one that places us primarily in front of mostly still frames of empty spaces within the house. A dark hallway, a child's room littered with toys, and a living room illuminated by the lights of a television playing old cartoons.
Maybe we should just... What was that?
While the film is only scored by thuds and scratches around the house that pierce through the silence, along with the whispers of the children for whom we really only see through hazy, out-of-focus shots. This is a film that values mood and atmosphere over all else. Without the theatrics of spectacle and non-diegetic sounds, you feel locked into its world with very little release, feeling just as alone and helpless as our two young protagonists, cloaked under the protective glow and comfort of a TV, but surrounded by the eeriness of the darkness and its utter silence. Even the most subtle sounds feel sudden and gently begin to break any feeling of comfort. There's something so familiar about these images. I didn't grow up in this house or necessarily watch these cartoons or play with these toys specifically, but yet you feel like you've almost been here at this moment. And before you know it, you feel whittled back down to a child without any clue of what's happening or what to do. And that's where the nightmare of Skinamarink begins. Nostalgia can be such a funny thing. How on one hand, it can be this almost mythical idea that can bring you back to a time and place that you can never get back. A time where the world probably felt so small and secure, and how the tiniest, most insignificant things in your life seemed to be what the world revolved around. The TV we watched, the toys we had or didn't have, and the games we played with friends that all feel like a distant memory now. And the thought of those things feel nice, don't they? Just stopping the day in and day out responsibilities of the adult world just to remember this time of our lives can make you feel so warm. Even the most cynical of adults can admit that those memories can be nice, and it's even harder to ignore how much they had an effect on us. How so many childhood habits transcend and evolve into our adult years. There is always a part of that child that we still choose to carry with us everywhere we go. Even in the darkest of places, they can. But, on the other hand, there's also something about nostalgia that can make us feel so vulnerable. How the comforts of those childhood memories can feel like such an illusion and so easily slip through our desperate grasps. How those things we look back on with such admiration are just things that can be taken away. How that safety and security we felt was never truly there. It's easy to see nostalgia as just being a filter that highlights the joy of our youth while the rest is hidden away. The parts that taught us as children that the world is bigger than us. That once you have all your escapes, security, and innocence stripped from you, you find that there was always something in the darkest edges, watching, waiting. And that reality can be so sobering, but yet terrifying. To me, that's the horror that easily defines a movie like Skinamarink. A film that takes the piece of nostalgia and weaponizes it by turning it against us, turning the splendors and warmth of childhood iconography and making it feel so bitter, cold. Turning it into a fear without alleviation. A nightmare that you can't wake up from. As the film progresses, we begin to feel a presence hanging over the children as it calls out to them from the dark. A presence that slowly begins to distort the world around them, picking off every one of their comforts, one by one. Toys begin to float to the ceiling out of their reach. The images of their parents, people who ideally symbolize safety and protection, are made lifeless and distant. And even their cartoons are twisted and molded into something ominous and threatening. And once those comforts have been taken and completely dismantled, the entity's intentions start to become violent and cruel. Before we know it, the house is thrown into darkness, and a home that feels so familiar to kids, to us, is no longer. And sitting in the theater and watching this movie, I just couldn't shake this sick feeling I had in my stomach as things in the movie began to progress towards darker and darker territory, where time begins to mean nothing and reality is bendable, and safety, comfort becomes an unobtainable luxury. And it's a feeling that, even as of writing this now, only a mere few weeks later, I haven't been able to shake off. Being locked in that house with those kids, you can't help but think of those nightmares you had all those years ago, and how real they all felt at one point. Suddenly, when I'm waking up at 3 a.m. to total darkness and turning to my partner just to make sure she's still there next to me, I feel like that kid again, looking for his family to ensure that he's not alone, that he's not left to the horrific devices of something so unknown and uncaring. Or worse, pure, loud, yet empty nothing. Lately, when I've been finding myself alone at home or uneasy in the middle of the night, I've turned to either fiddling around on my phone or going to the living room to watch TV just to ease my anxiety and hopefully fall back asleep so when I wake up, the nightmare can be over. Whatever it is or was I thought hid in the dark, I couldn't tell you. It doesn't even matter, really. It never did. Because even if you were to try to make sense of it and put a face to the nightmare, you'd get nothing. It simply just is. And in so many ways, that's so much worse.